Hi everybody, my name is Brian Roberts, and in this video I'm going to talk about the Roman numeral system. Alright, so the prerequisite for this is to be able to hear the difference between a major chord and a minor chord. If you can't hear the difference between a major chord and a minor chord, this is going to be a bit tough. Don't let it stop you from being curious about the Roman numeral system, but it certainly helps if you can hear the difference between a major chord and a minor chord. So just real quick, is this a major chord or a minor chord? If you said major, that's right. Okay. Is this a major chord or a minor chord? Okay, that's a minor chord. So hopefully you can hear the difference between those two things and be able to identify what those sound like just from hearing it alone. Let's see. Another thing that's certainly going to help with this is being able to play 2 octaves of any major scale. Typically I teach the G major scale from the 2nd position, right here. And I often teach this pretty early on in guitar lessons, but hopefully you're able to play at least 2 vertical octaves of a major scale, because that's going to help explain all this stuff. Some bonus things: if you're able to play bar chords, that's great. So if you can play major and minor bar chords on the E string and the A string, you're going to be pretty much set up for this. And if you're able to find the key of a song independently, that's also going to help a whole lot with this too. But let's dive into the main part of this. What is the Roman numeral system and how does it all work? First, you have to understand what a chord is. And what a chord is, if you look up any music theory article or book, they're going to tell you it's this thing called a major triad or a minor triad. So let's kind of unpack that word, triad. Oftentimes when I teach this, I write this out because I used to appreciate this in science class when they would write like the Latin word for something and then explain what the Latin meant in that scientific word, and that kind of helped me remember how it all fit together. Okay, so similar to science language where they use Latin for this is a Latin-based word, and for any of you who know Latin-based languages, what does the term tri mean? Well, you have triangle, you have tricycle, you have triceratops. It means 3. So that's what this means here, 3. And add, I'm not sure if this is true, but I've just translated this as tones. So all of your basic chords, whether it's major or minor, are triads. They're 3 unique notes, 3 unique pitches, and more on that in a second. But anytime you play any of those chords, so if you play a G, all that it is G's, B's, and D's. That's it. Even though you're playing 6 strings, there's 6 notes. Those 6 notes are either B, G, or D. So I'm hitting you with 3 unique notes. Now, what those 3 unique notes are the root note, which is where you get the name of the chord. In this case, it was a G. So it's the root, sometimes called the 1. It's the 1, the 3, or the 3rd. That would be a B in this case. The root, 3rd, and 5th, which is a D in this case. So root, 3rd, and 5th. If you tally up these individual numbers, you have 3 total notes. So that's what a triad is. Now, this phenomenon is called the stacking of thirds. And so if this was sheet music, let's see, this would be a G here. And that would be a B, and that would be a D. And that's a triad as well. 3 unique notes. This happens to be G, this happens to be B, and this happens to be D. But more importantly on guitars, you want to treat the lowest note as the root, or the 1. And this would be 2, this would be 3, 4, 5. Oh, why did I put a 4? 5. I just wanted to make sure I was recording. I did this not too long ago where I didn't hit record, and it's been weeks since I did a video because I've been frustrated from that. Anyway, we're recording, we're rolling. Okay, so if you count lines and spaces, you can see where they kind of get the numbering there. But you can also see with letters, G, A, B, C, D. So you're kind of skipping over. Now, this relationship in music is considered a third. So that also kind of coincidentally lines up to this whole triad thing. So triad, thirds, 3 notes. So from here to here is a third. So this to here, from here to here is a third. What do you think from here to here is? It's also a third. So this phenomenon is called the stacking of thirds. And if you ever encounter chords like major 7th or major 9 or things like that, well, they're still continuing that stacking of thirds, but that's a little more advanced for what we're talking about today. So when I was learning this, I didn't like that though, because mathematically speaking, 1 plus 3 does not equal 4, right? 1 plus 3 does not equal 4. I mean, yeah, 1 plus 3 does not equal 3. That's what I meant to write. 1 plus 3 does not equal 3. So I didn't really like this whole stacking of thirds phenomenon. So what I did is I translated this to an algebraic, is that right? Arithmetic algebra. I converted this to a equation. So the variable in this case would be the root note. So I put R plus 2 equals this, plus 2 equals that. So root plus 2 plus 2. That's what we're really going to need to remember in order to crack this open. Okay? So hopefully you don't have any questions about that. If you do, go back and watch this one more time. And then if you still have videos, if you still have questions, leave them in the comments below and I'll try my best to either respond to those comments, or I'll just make a new video further clarifying it as best I can. So you need to understand what a triad is. It's basically 3 unique notes and their thirds. By the way, they don't need to be in this particular order. They can be in any order, as long as what you're producing are 3 unique notes. So in this case, you have root 5th, root 3rd. So that's not in the stacked order, but it's comprised of those notes. Okay, so I'm going to erase this, and then we're going to get into the Roman numeral system. I'm going to leave that up top, though. Okay. Yes, perfect. I did it right, so you can see this. All right. Up here I have Roman numerals. If you don't know how to read Roman numerals, that's okay. All you need to do is look at how many there are. How many are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there are 7 Roman numerals. 7 numerals. My spelling has gotten so bad with spell check. So 7 Roman numerals. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. What else we got? If you take a look, they're not all capitalized in the same way. So if you bring your attention to the Roman numerals, you'll notice that 1, 4, and 5 are capitalized. So 1, 4, and 5 are capitalized. Capitalized. And 2, 3, 6, and 7, 2, 3, 6, and 7 are lowercase. That's important. And then there's one other piece of information, and that last piece of information is that the 7 has a circle on it. 7 has a circle. Okay? That's literally what the Roman numerals are. That's all that it's displaying. That there's 7 of them. 1, 4, and 5 are capitalized. 2, 3, 6, and 7 are lowercase, and 7 has a little circle. That's it. 3 pieces of information just by looking at it. All right? But now we're going to figure out why is it displayed like that, and then eventually we're going to figure out how and why is this useful. So let's dive in. This is the hard part. What we're going to do is we're going to take a key. In this particular case, we're going to take G major, which hopefully you already know how to play. And by the way, this works with any key. So this is any major key. So this is pretty universal. That's why it's a powerful tool. And we're going to take the G major scale, and we're going to apply this formula. So when you take a G major scale, you're basically just playing whatever your root note is, in this case G, and you're going do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. And then you're just repeating that. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, in the next octave. So if you're a singer, you would use solfege, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. But as an instrumentalist, you're going to use intervals. So we call this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And in music, 8 is also 1. 1, this would be the second octave. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 2 octaves. And again, you could do it anywhere you like. You could do it over here at A if you wanted to and do the same thing. And you would end up getting the same results when we finish this all up, okay? But just to keep things simple, we're going to be using G for today's example. All right, so in the key of G, you can play the notes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then you got 8, which is also 1. So we don't really need that because 8 and 1 are the same thing and they just repeat themselves. So what was I going to say? Oh, one other thing that, I don't know if anybody's brought this to your attention, but the intervals 3 and 4 are side by side on a guitar or a half step on whatever instrument you're on. And 7 and 8 or 7 and 1 are also 1 fret away. Everything else is spaced out by 2 frets or a whole step if you're on another instrument. And just something to kind of keep in mind. All right, so we're in a key. We're in the key of G. Now what we want to do is we want to figure out, well, if we take each one of these notes and turn them into a triad, aka a chord, what do we end up getting? So that's what we're going to do. So if we take the first note of any key, in this case it's G, and we turn it into a chord, we plug it into this formula. So if we're starting on 1, 1 plus 2 equals 3. I'll do this in a different color ink. I'm pretty sure you won't really be able to see this all that well, but whatever. So here's 1. 1 plus 2 equals 3, and 3 plus 2 equals 5. So that's what we're going to be dealing with when we take the first note of any key and we turn it into a chord. So how do we do this? Well, we take the scale, and remember we're assigning numbers to each note, and so the starting note would be 1, and the 3 would be 1, 2, 3. So we're trying to find the 3 right there. So 1, 2, 3. And then you have 5, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the notes to use to make a chord from the first note would be 1, 3, and 5. Now when you play it like that, that's called an arpeggio, which is just the elements of a chord played individually rather than together. Okay. Now what you might find is that the 3 and the 5 are on the same string, which makes them impossible to play at the same time. So we have to kind of change things around a little bit. This note is the equivalent of the very next string's open string. They're both Ds, they're both 5s. Take a listen. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now let's see if you can hear a difference. So those are the same note. If you're really confused about it, you can turn on a tuner, hit that note, it'll say D, and if you play the very next string, it's also a D, so that'll also physically tell you. So anyway, that circumnavigates that problem of having the same, having 2 notes on the same string. So I'm going to kick that over to the next bit. This is where being able to hear the difference between a major chord and a minor chord is very important. So I'm going to play those 3 notes, 1, 3, and 5, and we're going to figure out what kind of chord it is. So here we go. So it is a lower pitch, but don't let the lower pitch confuse you. Really listen to the harmony. What kind of chord is that? Is that major or minor? Well, hopefully you said major, because if you did, you'd be correct. So when you take the first note of any key and you turn it into a triad or a basic chord, it becomes major. This is true 100% of the time with any major scale. So this becomes, I'll put a happy face for major, major. Okay? So now we're going to do the same process for every single other interval in that scale, in that key. So we'll do it together though. The very next note would be 2. So we started with 1, and then we turned that into a chord. Now we're going to start on 2, plug it into this formula, pinpoint those intervals, play those intervals in synchronicity with each other at the same time, and see what they sound like. So we have 2, which is the root note, plus 2 equals, do you know? 2 plus 2 is 4. And then 4 plus 2 equals 6. So now we're looking at the second note of any particular key, major key, and seeing what kind of chord can be rendered in, playing within that parameter. So we have 1, 2, so here we are on 2, 2, 3, 4, and the reason why I get a 4 is because if you start from the very beginning, 1, 2, 3, 4, okay, so there's 2 and 4, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay, don't need 5, we need 6, 5, 6, so there's 6. You put them all together, you have 2, 4, 6, so that'd be an arpeggio. Now we don't have the problem of having multiple notes on one strings. They're all on their own individual string, so we can play them individually. It's kind of hard to play like this. You won't oftentimes find guitar players playing these kinds of chords like this, but this is a way. So if we play them together, what kind of chord is that? Any idea? That happens to be a minor chord. Okay, so this is true every single time you build chords inside of a major scale, that the second note, when turned into a chord, will be a minor chord. So I'll put a little lower, I'll put a little frowning face for minor chords. There we go. So 2 becomes minor. All right, number 3. So I'm going to start picking up the pace a little bit because hopefully you've kind of got the gist. So we're going to take the third note of the particular scale. So 1, 2, 3, there's 3. And you're going to plug that into the formula. 3 with a stacked third and a stacked third. So 3 plus 2 equals 5. And 5 plus 2 equals 7. So now we're looking at 3, 5, and 7. So 3, 5, and 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 3, 5, 6, 7, 3, 5, 7, 3, 5, 7. So those would be the notes as an arpeggio, but in order to get a chord, you need to play them at the same time. And unfortunately, we have a similar problem from before, where we have 2 notes on one string. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, it's a B note, it happens to be the third, 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to throw it over here. But I'll keep everything else, which was 5 and 7 right there. So I'm going to put that over here. So I have to kind of switch my fingers around. Hopefully you shouldn't hear any difference. It's the same thing, that's why. And when I play those together, you should get a certain kind of chord quality. It's either major or minor. Any idea? This would be a minor chord. So anytime you take the third note and you turn it into a chord, it becomes minor. All right, we're going to hit warp drive. The very next bit is 4, so you plug it into the formula. 4 plus 2 is 6. 6 plus 2 is 8. And remember, in music, 8 is equivalent to a 1. So I'm going to put 1 and 8. But it's essentially 1 in the next octave. You could do it in the same octave, but it's just kind of easier to hear if you're a beginner if you throw it to the next octave. Okay, anyway, so we're going to pinpoint 4, 6, and 1. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's our starting note. 4, 5, 6. There's 6. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 8. So that would be the arpeggio, but we have a similar problem as before. 2 notes on one string. So I'm going to do the solution of throwing it on the next string. Now we have them together. So that's 4, 6, 1 in the next octave. What kind of chord is that? It's a major or minor? Again, hopefully you can hear the difference, but this is a major chord. It's bright. Some would call it happy. So anytime you take the fourth note of any key, any major key I should say, and turn it into a chord, you get major. All right, fifth note. So 5, put it into the formula, you get 5 plus 2 equals 7, plus 2 equals, it's technically a 9, but you want to treat it like it's the next octave. So 9 minus 7 would be 2. So it's 2 in the next octave. It's kind of like carrying the 1 when you're doing like subtraction or whatever, but yeah. 8 is 1, plus 1 is 2. So there you go. So 5, 7, and 2 in the next octave. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 5, 7. Here's 8 or 1 in the next octave. 1, 2, there's 2 in the next octave. So we have 5, 7, 2. And there you have it, 5, 7, 2. What kind of chord is that? Okay, hopefully you can hear that as a major chord, because that's what it is. It's a major chord. Alright, next up is 6, in which case we'd be plugging that into the formula. 6 plus 2 is 8, also known as a 1 in the next octave. 1 plus 2 equals 3, so a 3 in the next octave. So we're looking at 6 in the first octave and 1 and 3 in the next octave. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there's 6. 6, 7, 1, so 6, 1, 2, 3. 6, 1, 3, 6, 1, 3. So that's an arpeggio. We have that same problem as before. 2 notes on 1 string, so I'm going to kick the 6 over there. They're both E's. And that will enable me to play each note on separate strings. Okay, when I'm playing them together, what kind of tonality is this? Is this major or minor? Hopefully you said minor, because that's what it is. So anytime you take the 6th note and you turn it into a chord, it becomes a minor chord. All right, now we'll do 7. I know this is really exciting stuff. So up next is 7. You plug it into the formula, you get 2 in the next octave, and you get 4 in the next octave. If you play 7, 2, and 4 in a major key, you end up getting a specific kind of chord. So let's take a listen to it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 7. 7, 1, 2, 2 in the next octave. 7, 1, 2, 3. There's 3. 7, 1, 3. So that's the arpeggio of this chord. 7, 1, 3. So I'll throw that 3 over there. There we go. That's the arpeggio. Now the chord. What kind of chord is that? Any idea? A lot of people say minor, and that's awfully close. This is actually a special kind of chord. It's called diminished, and it's not really used all that often in pop music. I think a lot of people, if they can recollect like the movies from before there was like audio from dialogue, they used to put music to it, and they have to put captions. This reminds me of the damsel tied up. Spooky. So if you said major, you're wrong. If you said minor, unfortunately, you're still wrong. This is what's called a diminished chord. Okay, so anytime you take the 7th interval of a major scale and you turn it into a chord using this triad formula, you end up getting a diminished chord. So that's my concerned face. I don't know. So diminished. All right. So the fact of the matter is, no matter what major key you're in, major scale you're in, this is always true. So if you were like, let's say for example, in an awkward key signature like A flat, kind of a bunch of flats in there, whatever, you do the same thing. You know, the scale box on a guitar is still the same exact thing. You just move it up a couple frets, whatever it is, or you can do it over here at B. whatever you choose, wherever you start, whatever your key is, and you do the same thing. If you take 1, 3, and 5, put them together, you end up getting a major chord. If you take 2, 4, and 6, you end up getting a minor chord. If you take 3, 5, 7, you still get a minor chord. If you take 4, 6, and 1, you still get a major chord. If you take 5, 7, and 2, you still get a major chord. If you take 6, 1, and 3, you still get a minor chord. And if you take 7, 2, and 4, you still get a diminished chord. And then when you get to 8, it resets itself back to 1 because 1 and 8 are the same thing. So this is true every single time. Yes, I know, it's great. Finally, something's starting to become a pattern. Wow. Now, believe it or not, your ears already kind of know this. If you grew up in a Western society, your ears already have figured this out. You just haven't conceptually figured it out yet. So let's enter into the Roman numerals. We have all the information we need to justify the way that this is displayed. So what were those 3 things about the Roman numerals? There's 7 of them. 1, 4, and 5 are capitalized. 2, 3, 6, and 7 are lowercase, and 7 has a circle by it. So here we go. You ready? Do you notice any correlation between what we just did in the lab and what is displayed? So hopefully you can put 2 and 2 together, but if not, I'm here to guide you. If I bring your attention to 1, 4, and 5, here's 1. It's a major. Here's 4. It's also a major. And here's 5. It is also a major. Look at, those are the only ones that are major. Everything else is minor or diminished. So 1, 4, and 5 are major. Look, 1, 4, and 5, they're all capitalized. So you can translate this as capitalized Roman numerals are major. So you don't have to go through this whole process of having to stack triads. You can understand that behind it, that's what they all are. But when you simply look at a scale, note 1 will be major. Note 4 will be major. Note 5 will also be major. So sometimes colloquially we'll say, oh, play a 1, a 4, and a 5. You ever notice why so many songs have G's, C's, and D's in them, like all together? Interesting. Now, if you take a look at everything else, except 7, so 2, 3, and 6, so I'll highlight those real quick. Actually, before I do that, let's put a capital 1 here, a capital 4 there, and a capital 5 there. And then we have 2, 3, and 6. So I'll circle 2, 3, and 6. And take a look up at the Roman numerals there. So Roman numerals up there. Take a look at Roman numeral 2, 3, and 6. They're all lowercase. And do you notice a correlation between what's circled here in blue? Well, if you notice, all 2, 3, and 6 are lowercase, and they're all minors. So you can translate lowercase equaling minor. So this is true no matter what major key you're in, that the 2, 3, and 6 will be minor. So for example, well, we know 1, 4, and 5 are major, but according to this, 2, 3, and 6 are minor. Yeah, so those are all chords that fit. Now, you probably haven't encountered a diminished chord yet, unless you're dealing with some kind of off-center kind of music. Nothing wrong with that. But the reason why 7 is lowercase is a lot of people will mistakenly call this chord minor when it's not quite. It's something unique in of itself. It has a little asterisk, a little circle telling us that it's a special chord. And so this one is diminished, in which case I'll just put it in red. So that's my concerned face. So 7, the reason why it has a circle is because that represents a diminished chord. And so that's true, and no matter what key you're in, you can play a diminished chord at the 7th note. And that's an oftentimes used, or, yeah. So the 7th chord is diminished. All right. Fact, so whatever major key you're in, this will always be true. The 1 chord is major, the 2 chord is minor, 3 chord is minor, 4 chord is major, 5 chord is major, 6, and this directly coincides to your scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. So 1, 2, minor, 3, minor, 4, major, 5, major, 6, minor, 7, diminished, 1 again. And you can do them in any order. If you start on 4 though, that must be major. If you start on 6, that has to be minor. 6 is minor. If you start on 7, I don't know why you would, but 7 would be diminished. If you started on 1, 1 is major. If you started on 3, minor. If you started on 5, major. And I'm using bar chords to interface with this, but if you didn't, you would look at it and go, okay, well 1 is G, and so do I know G major? Yes, I do. 2 is, that's an A, okay, A2 would be minor, so yeah, I know an A minor. 3 is, oh, well that's a B note. Unfortunately, that's not an open chord. You must play B minor as a bar chord. And the reason why it's minor is because it's lowercase, because when you plug it into this, it becomes minor. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, that note's a C. Yeah, I know open C. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, that note's a D. So I can play that as an open chord. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That happens to be an E. So in which case you would turn that into an E minor. This 6 is minor. And then 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, that's an F sharp. F sharp, well, you need to know how to play a diminished chord. And there you go. Well, this is a minor 7, 5, 5. Don't worry about it. Okay, so this works. If it was in a different key, like let's say this, which is B flat, your 1 chord would be B flat. It would be major. 1, 2, minor. 3 is minor. 4, 1, 4, here comes the bride. 1, 5, Star Wars 5 is major. 5, 6 is minor. 4, 5, 1. Always true. Doesn't matter what key you're in. So it's a very powerful thing. Now, if you can combine that with the knowledge of, finding a particular key of a song, then that instantly tells you what 6 chords to start off with. I mean, there's always going to be exceptions to the rules, but generally speaking, if you find the key and you know this Roman numeral system, you are like 90% there to knowing what's possibly there. So very powerful thing, Roman numeral system. Get it down, study it. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section below, or let me know at your next lesson, or send me a message. I don't know, whatever. But I hope you find this useful. This is one of the probably the most effective things that I've used throughout my career, and I am honored to try and explain it to you, and hopefully you find some usage out of it. Again, my name is Brian Roberts, and I do guitar lessons out of Honolulu, Hawaii, and I hope to see you soon. Take care.